of Cuyahoga Job and Family Services. We're here today to review RFP 42974. We're going to begin with an introduction by the Office of Procurement and Diversity.
Good morning, everybody. I'm just here to explain some of the details, so when you submit your proposal, everything is correct on our end, so it doesn't get rejected for a paperwork issue or anything like that. If I could just remind everybody to please sign in the back before you leave, just so we have a record that you were here and your email address is legible so that we can email you any questions or anything that would come up. Let's see. This is going to be a discussion just for clarification and questions only. All the questions and answers are going to be a part of the web link so that everybody has access to those. The planned work schedule at this point in time is April 1st of 2019 to December 31st of 2020. They do have qualifications and experience listed, what they're looking for on pages 24 and 25 of the RFP. The sealed proposals are going to be due on Friday, October 19th at 11 a.m. in the Office of Procurement on the second floor of this building. Make sure that some of the same issues you guys may have had today with the parking and the security, getting through and making sure that they are time-stamped by 11 a.m. Anything after that will be returned unopened. And make sure that if you do send them, UPS or FedEx, someone is not in our office until 8:30 in the morning. So if they try and deliver early and they don't come back until after 11, we're not responsible for that. Just so you guys are aware of that. We want to make sure that everybody is on the plan holders list. If you're not sure, you can call the Office of Procurement at 216-443-7200, and they'll take care of it, make sure you guys get on the list. And that's also so that you get any kind of addendums that would go out, you'll be assured to get that. The original proposal submission must include your original proposal, 6 copies, and 1 electronic copy. The financial statements, please mark them confidential. We do not look at that. It stays with the proposal, but we personally don't look at it. Our required documents for procurement are the non-collusion affidavit and the cooperative purchasing form. Both forms are attached to the back of the RFP. And the non-collusion affidavit must be signed and notarized, just so you guys are aware. There are no diversity goals for this project, and you will need to be registered with the IG office if you aren't already. And just take note that there are some special insurance requirements as professional and cyber insurance were added. Just make sure you guys take a look at that.
So as I said, we're here to review the RFP 42974. The RFP is the document of record, so any discussion today should be referenced against the language in the RFP. We're going to go over the RFP. In some areas, I'm going to read verbatim. In others, I will summarize. If you have questions today, we're going to ask that you please write them. We'll be providing note cards in a second. If Anthony and Tanya, you guys can come forward. Anthony and Tanya will be distributing note cards. We'd like for you to write your questions down and give them back to Anthony or Tanya. You can give to either. If it's easier, you could also bring them up to Dan in the front. And please see Part 5, the general proposal procedures, where there's instructions about proposal inspection, as well as Part 1 that provides information about submission of questions outside of today. And we're going to try to answer any of the questions you present to us today. We may paraphrase or group questions. We may not answer or engage in discussion if your question is about a proposed service. We're here to go over the RFP, not your proposal. So the purpose of the RFP, I'm beginning in part 2 of the RFP. We're soliciting proposals to provide workforce services to public assistant recipients that are on TANF or SNAP programs. We believe the services will help achieve self-sufficiency for our residents, as well as for them to meet any work requirements while they're receiving services. Cuyahoga Job and Family Services is responsible to help families achieve economic independence through personal development, education, and employment. So we're seeking workforce services that will help our residents obtain paid employment with the potential of wage growth and progress in their careers. To achieve these goals, we've made two major changes in the existing service delivery model. The first is we are looking for one provider per client, and we intend that when we refer a client to a provider, the client stays with that provider for the entirety of their program. Providers will be expected to deliver all services directly or through a coordination of services through subcontracts. The second area is that we are procuring for programs, not work activities. Providers should be able to describe their services or set of services in terms of a cohesive program that can take their client through their existing level of employability all the way to employment and hopefully through a career. But you also need to explain how the services will in fact support work requirements. Really, the key here is the providers should not consider the activities to be services by themselves. We're seeking to prescribe as little as possible. And we expect providers to propose specific work service models. They're encouraged to be innovative, cost-effective services that will meet our goals and comply with federal and state requirements. I'll repeat that several times throughout. The primary constraint on providers will be ensuring that participating clients can comply with their required monthly activities. As stated, the initial contract period is anticipated to be 21 months from April 1, 2019 through December 31, 2020. And then there will be two option 12-month periods. Yeah, please note, so this RFP does not include clients from the Comprehensive Case Management and Employment Program, or those that are eligible for TANF without work requirements. So Cuyahoga Job and Family Services plans to procure services for those clients jointly with Cleveland Cuyahoga County Department of Workforce Development, Ohio Means Jobs, Cleveland Cuyahoga County. So I'm going to share a little bit more on background. It's important for folks to understand that the 1996 Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act and the 2005 Deficit Reduction Act condition receipt of cash assistance and food assistance on participating in work activities. In Cuyahoga County, our efforts focus on the overall goal of helping low-income individuals and parents improve their employment outcomes so they can move towards self-sufficiency at the same time as fulfilling any work requirements. Since 2016, we've experimented with a variety of service models that pay for clients for the time they spent removing barriers to employment, subsidized employment programs, specialized case management services, amongst many other. In 2016, Cuyahoga County joined through County Executive Armin Budish's initiative to unify workforce development initiatives across Cuyahoga County departments under the brand Propel Cuyahoga. Our role within Propel is to provide integrated workforce services that are both sensitive to the needs of our clients and build a talent pipeline to fill the needs of employers in the regional economy. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. So, too many county residents live in or near poverty and are not accessing workforce services. They need to develop careers that will lift them from poverty. Area businesses have unmet labor and talent needs. Workforce and social service providers, as well as the county's human service staff, must balance the mandated work requirements with the belief that county residents, as stated in the Charter of Cuyahoga County, and that job creation and economic growth as a fundamental government purpose, thereby helping the county to do a better job of creating and retaining jobs and ensuring the necessary and essential human services. Cuyahoga County must be effective at addressing the workforce needs of residents and businesses while aligning with federal mandates. So our workforce service will be based on TANF and SNAP as both funding streams and as a referral source for clients. And when clients fall out of compliance with their work requirements, and are sanctioned from benefits, it breaks their receipt of workforce services. And important to note that if the overall compliance rate is low, it can put the county's funding streams in jeopardy. We've seen that client turnover in these programs has been high, and overall enrollment in these programs has declined sharply despite persistent poverty levels. And as a result, overutilization of county services is low, and many clients drop out before achieving paid employment, much less self-sufficiency. So our goals for this program. Recipients of workforce service are expected to achieve paid employment with the prospect of wage gains, career advancement, and when possible, including attainment of significant education milestones. We want to see better client retention so that clients do not leave services due to non-compliance with the program's requirements, disengagement and discouragement, and or reaching lifetime eligibility limits. Many of the clients that will be served through this workforce program will be engaged with other human service programs across DHHS and outside of county funding network. So our intent is in keeping with the county's 2017-2018 strategic plan to drive regional growth, economic opportunity, and individual well-being by mobilizing cross-sector resources and providing superior services. Strong proposals will make use of existing county and outside programs by supplementing the proposed work service with existing supportive services and by supplementing county funding with outside resources. We've listed in the objectives a series of objectives. I'm not going to go over them each individually except to say attaining employment, maintaining client eligibility, matching to in-demand occupations, retention of paid employment, and wage and career advancement are all objectives of this RFP. So we are seeking providers that can serve a client through the entirety of their enrollment instead of just when they are assigned that client to work with. There are a number of roles that providers can apply to serve those clients in. They can apply as a comprehensive provider that will directly provide all services and programs to the client without the use of subcontracts. They can apply as a prime provider that are responsible for the delivery of the programs but provides some of the services directly and others through subcontracts. Please note that any selected primes will be expected to manage all subcontracts identified through this procurement, and prime providers will have the ability to add or remove subcontractors with the approval of the county. They will also receive performance payments for themselves as well as their subcontractors, according to the contractual relationship. And a third option is the consortium provider. We are open to a consortium of providers presenting a collaborative structure where, as a group of providers, they jointly propose a program or services that covers the entirety of a client's enrollment, but lacks the hierarchy of a prime subcontractor relationship. We would expect the consortium proposal would allow all agencies to negotiate and participate in contract management as equals. Page 23 describes this in more detail. An organization may submit multiple proposals to the RFP and propose serving in different roles. A provider may submit at most one proposal as a comprehensive provider or a prime. One as a subcontractor seeking to be matched and join in a consortium of proposals. PJFS may seek more than one provider. We may have prime providers and subcontractors working together in other structures, including one serving as a fiscal agent to manage and distribute braided funds to various services and resources. We are seeking innovative approaches to improve service delivery that can meet the program mandates. Accordingly, we reserve the right to negotiate with multiple providers, simultaneously award multiple prime, comprehensive, subcontract, and consortium providers to merge proposal responses with the agreement of parties, to share the contents of this response of the response proposals with outside entities for the purpose of validation of the proposed service and data sources, or to secure additional funding or evaluation, and to reject all response proposals and rebid the project. So let's talk a little bit about the client population and work requirements. We understand that services will be available to a large, diverse population who face a variety of barriers to employment. We are not going to mandate that all providers serve all clients, but instead we are seeking providers that can specify in their proposal which subsets of the population they can best serve based on information we provide and the provider's experience working with relevant populations. We're asking that providers specify the clients they propose to serve through one of two groups. The first is the benefits group. The second is by other cross-program groups. The benefits group is important because most clients come into our program through SNAP or TANF. These are, TANF is up to 25 to 59. SNAP is generally ABODs. These are able-bodied adults without dependents. Then the cross-program groups, and we list those on page 14, but we would recognize that although many residents face common barriers to employment, there are such as criminal record or language barriers, disabilities, pregnancy, and homelessness. There are also many clients that have membership in sub-program groups or specific groups that are dealing with experiences that are different from the general population. We don't expect to be able to serve all of the proposed cross-section groups, but we will try to serve those that align with our strategic goals. So there's quite a bit of detail in the client population by benefits section, and so that's available for you to review. I would like to recognize that in the work requirements, ABODs, again, these are able-bodied adults without dependents, are specified here as they have explicit work requirement activities. Please review those. I do have to recognize that job retention is included in this RFP. Job retention is not a cost. A program that is in the state of Ohio's plan at this time. Can't speak to how the plan will be revised, and so that may or may not be an allowable activity moving forward. We're presenting it as an option, but that may not be an allowable activity. So SNAP E&T participant activities are laid out in the Ohio Revised Code 5101.54 and the Administrative Code 5101.4.320. You should really look at those. We've provided the reference here. You should familiarize yourself with those. I can say much the same about the TANF clients, and the demographics are listed here as well as known barriers in recent volume. The work requirements are more complicated because there are different groups than the SNAP participants. Those are listed here for you to consider, as well as the core and non-core activities. Once again, I'm just going to recognize that the Ohio Revised Code, ORC 5107.40D, and the Administrative Code 5101-1301 have relevant language for services for those areas. So I want to talk a little bit about cross-program groups. And so we recognize that many residents are receiving SNAP or TANF and have significant barriers to employment and are really crossing barrier lines, are being served by multiple providers and have a range of needs. Many may actually require intensive case management. For cross-program proposed services, we'd expect the provider to also indicate any sort of assessments that they would want to use. We will also be providing information in the negotiation. We would look for a level of detail in any assessment, any information. We'd ask for people to provide precise descriptions whenever possible of the sorts of backgrounds that they are hoping to address. Even if a provider does not issue or does not respond with a cross-program population, we would like to know if that provider has any services that they offer that have demonstrated this effectiveness with special populations. We've identified several groups here that align with our strategic priorities, including homeless individuals and families, individuals with substance abuse disorders, youth aging out of the foster or juvenile justice system, adults reentering the community from prison or jail, adults with prior convictions, youth or adults not engaged in primary education, the training or military programs, and adults, older adults seeking employment or volunteer activities, individuals with physical, mental, emotional, learning, or cognitive disabilities, but who currently lack work exemptions, pregnant or postpartum women, and then there are specific geographies that we understand are of concern. So our goal is to ensure that clients with specialized, more difficult to serve needs have a tailored program to be made available to them. So I want to talk a little bit more in detail about a potential additional work required population. At this time, there is not a final decision on some of this, but we're including in the RFP because we want to prepare for it. So the state of Ohio has applied for a federal waiver to require certain Medicaid recipients to complete similar work activities to maintain eligibility. The requirement is expected to begin during 2018, but currently, I'll just tell you that we have not gotten formal notice from the state of Ohio when they will have the program begin. So there is an expectation that the state will impose work requirements on any program that provides a means-tested assistance or other assistance that provides benefits to people, households, families that have low income. So CJFS is not seeking proposals specific to these potential additional clients at this time. However, providers should be aware that if requirements like those for SNAP and TANF are imposed on Medicaid or other programs, CJFS will serve the additional clients through services contracted through this RFP. I'd like to talk about program design now. So there is quite a bit of jargon listed here, but for our purposes, a program refers to an overall plan plan for helping a client attain employment and a service to a more specific, concrete activities that are components of the plan. We understand that you may not use the same jargon in the same ways, but please be clear on how you describe your programs and services. And a note on work activities. Again, we do not consider the federally defined work activities for SNAP and TANF to be services in the sense I described above. We really do encourage each provider to decide on a successful service model first and to figure out how to comply with our work activity second. So our referral model. So our intent is for our case managers to refer a client to a provider following an assessment, and for our case managers to choose from a variety of programs designed to help clients with different barriers to employment and at different levels of job readiness, rather than the current model of a case manager creating a program from a mix of federal work activities. The mix of work activities is likely to change over the period of a client's participation, and the services shift from emphasis to preparing to obtaining and then retaining advancement in employment. So page 28 and 29 go over the structure that we're proposing, but we expect for there to be one page describing the intent of the intended clients, a couple pages, 2 pages describing the program and services, 1 page describing why providers believe the programs will be successful, and 1 to 5 pages mapping out the programs onto work activities. Providers may provide up to 15 additional pages of attachments for each program to further document the activities. So just reiterating here, compliance with clients' work activities is a mandate, and we want our case managers to be able to choose a provider and program because it would best serve the client, not because it is the only one that meets the client's work requirements. Providers are responsible for providing services in a manner that allows the client to meet the requirements that are both federal and state at both federal and state standards. So, in terms of understanding how we will be demonstrating that a client will achieve compliance. So, we understand that a program may not fully comply with assignment to a program may not fully comply with federal or state standards, but is considered high quality and can be corrected. Then we will address any shortcomings during negotiations. So providers should treat this proposal as an opportunity to show they understand the requirements and can creatively adapt their programs to meet the regulations without sacrificing the program's quality. We've listed the various standards below on page 18 for the 5 standard levels of work requirements. We have provided a suggested template for mapping services to work activities. This is provided on page 19. This is an example, and in this example, a provider is proposing an 8-week training program tied to employment with a prearranged employer. And I'm just briefly going to walk through the example. In this example, the program is referenced as accredited customer service training program that would serve single parents, TANF households with 2 children over the age of 6. The understanding is that there would generally be 130 hours of services a month with, a week with 87 being core. Didn't state that right. So 130 monthly hours with 87 being core. So as you see in this example, services are broken out by month with an understanding of what service will be provided when, what work activity will align with that service, and the specific service that will be offered, the hours that will be attained that will meet the work activity, and the total hours provided. You can see that as the client moves month to month, they move through stages of the program, moving from orientation to training in classroom to vocational education, at times into unpaid work, such as WEP, and continued training that ultimately leads to paid employment and then full-time employment. Again, this is provided as an example. This document does not have to be used. We think it is a way in which a provider can map out services. We expect that some clients will be referred to a provider midway through a month, and that backdate, and then when that occurs, work requirements will be backdated to their initial date of application. So we'll be looking to see how a provider will meet the federal and state requirements when they receive a client halfway through a month. We also expect that some clients will be able to reapply for benefits after they've been sanctioned due to noncompliance. As a general practice, we will be referring each client back to the provider that served them last prior to being sanctioned. In terms of language access, bilingual services, particularly in Spanish, must be available to those who participate in programs and have limited English language. We also, in terms of location, have clients served that are living throughout the county. Transportation is a real special issue that we understand and a significant barrier. So we'll be looking to see how providers address location. Contract management. So we will be hosting regular meetings with representatives from the provider. We expect these to be at the minimum monthly. They will be in person, and there will be other meetings that will be provided between the contract administration and performance unit. We've identified here performance metrics. We have been using performance metrics for over a decade. We've listed the ones that we are currently planning to focus on, including job placement, paid job placement, wage level, job retention, work participation rate, education attainment, which can include high school equivalency, college degrees, and professional credentialing. We reserve the right to amend, add to, or subtract from these metrics during the duration of the contract. And you'll see in section 10, page 20, there's more detail on these. We would ask you to propose additional metrics that you will or you do use if you think it will be helpful for us to monitor and manage the contract. We're especially interested in anything that is supporting innovative services for clients. We have a strong history of providing performance payments in our contracts, and we'll continue to do that in this contract. In recent contracts, 30 to 40% of the contract value were tied to performance measures. So in terms of the planned performance payments, please see section C, page 22. It lists the payment metrics we expect to use. The exact payments will be determined during the negotiation process. As it relates to credentialed education, we do want to see clients offered the opportunity to successfully complete formal education or credentialed programming. We cannot pre-establish appropriate payment points at this time. We will be looking for documentation to include a program accreditation, cost, length, transferability, completion rates, and post-completion employment and wage gains. We do expect that given the amount of time it may take a client to complete education, that we may need to offer payment for partial degree attainment if it is in aligned with the goals of this RFP. Page 22 lists the proposed schedule of performance payments, and these are we've already gone over these. I'm going to say briefly, job placement is paid employment. Wage level is will begin at least $2 above the minimum wage, and will be for when a client has maintained that wage for 90 days after placement. There are job retention performance payments for both the individual as well as the overall agency performance. Work participation rate, there'll be a payment based on at least 50% of clients meeting the rate. High school equivalency will include the high school diploma, the GED, or high school equivalency certificates. Credential training includes occupational or technical credentials or skills, and if someone is in a program for an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. Program management. We do expect to see detail from any proposal that can show how the provider will manage referrals, quickly engage clients, and maintain productive client relationships throughout the program. We expect there to be a plan that will show a schedule of activities and how those align with the proposed program goals and objectives. At the minimum, it should be able to track and manage program resources, monitor effectiveness, measure productivity, identify program strengths and weaknesses, describe methods of interacting with staff during the process and the contract, and any services that will be offered to clients that aren't proposed by CJFS. So for the prime provider role, we do want to see all identified subcontractors included. There is the ability to add subcontractor with the county's prior written approval. I should say add or remove subcontractors. And vendors will be responsible for subcontractors meeting the terms and conditions of this RFP. For consortium providers, we also expect there to be a well-coordinated approach that will minimize clients' travel between locations, the frequency of changing case managers, and to distribute both client activities to avoid counterproductive competition between participating providers. Consortium proposals will be Performance will be measured, and that performance payments will be distributed among the responding agencies. For the staffing model, we expect to see professional staff with experience working with low-income, hard-to-employ individuals, including individuals with experience working with local area employers, staffing agencies, or community development corporations. We also expect to see qualifications of any program management staff. We've listed several here. There is an expectation for a business continuity plan in the event that there's a disruption due to any unforeseen circumstances, failures of system, or disasters. We expect to see how the business will continue to operate in the absence of information systems and how they will plan to restore these. So I'm going to move on to organization capacity and prior experience. We expect the interested organizations to have at least 3 years demonstrated experience in successfully delivering workforce services to low-income clients. The experience should include programs that are similar to what is being proposed. We'd like to know more about those programs, what their goals were, the performance measures and outcomes achieved, measures of quality, effectiveness, and efficiency, and lessons learned, as well as recommended adjustments to improve outcomes. If your program is receiving other county funds, please describe how the county agencies, divisions that you work with, and please describe which are the county agencies and divisions you work with, and how those experiences support the program being proposed here. And if you will, please make recommendations how the programs can be better aligned through your proposal. If you are nationally credentialed, please include the credential and criteria for your qualifications. If you've received an evaluation for your services by an external entity, please describe in detail the nature and findings of the evaluation. If you are proposing as a prime provider role, describe your experience in managing contractors. If you're proposing as a consortium, describe each member's experience working in a structure similar to the one that you've proposed. I'm going to wrap up here shortly. So moving on to reporting, evaluation, and accountability. We'll expect providers to describe their internal use of data and electronic management systems to manage proposed programs, as well as your capacity to export data for us. We strongly prefer providers that are able to deliver automated disaggregate county level data in a standardized format at least weekly. Current reporting utilizes an IWAM system. That reporting method may change with the state's implementation of a new case management system, which providers may be required to report directly into. As described in Section 9, in the program design, proposed programs must include performance measures for clients' outcomes and progress towards employment, and to gauge whether workforce services are being implemented as planned and whether the program is on course to meet its proposed objectives. Relates to quality assurance. We do want to ensure that clients receive high-quality workforce services and that case records and participation data is accurately maintained. We do provide random case sampling, or we do carry out random case sampling of client records, regular observation of program activities, ongoing subject matter training and professional development, regular staff meetings on program updates and changes, and staff evaluation. Client satisfaction is also an important goal of ours, so we expect to see a detailed plan for measuring the satisfaction of program participants. Moving into part 3, I'm not going to go in detail into each of these sections. They're here for you to review and respond to. I will say for the body of the proposal that proposals will be scored based on the project deliverables outlined in the RFP, and that all proposals must address the RFP service area in detail and include all required attachments. Proposals that which do not include the attachments as described will be scored accordingly. Emphasis will be given to organizations that have history of providing employment-related services and other supportive services to low-income populations. The program design section will be worth 35 points. The program management section will be worth 15 points. I do want to draw your attention to the need to have resumes and job descriptions reflect the minimum qualifications described in the RFP. I also want to note that a minimum of one staff member must be bilingual, fluent in Spanish. The organizational capacity and prior experience will be worth 15 points. Reporting, evaluation, accountability will be worth 20 points. Customer references do not have a point value. We do expect to see 3 references from an organization that is delivered from the organization that has delivered a similar service. No more than 1 reference can be from Cuyahoga County staff, and 1 reference should be from a non-county funder or investor. The program budget will be worth 15 points. The budget and the narrative should be attached and labeled as Appendix 7. The terms and conditions, they do not have a point value, but we expect to see a statement indicating the agency's the provider's willingness to comply with all conditions set forth in the RFP. The miscellaneous section, again, there's no points attributed to it, but we expect to have the vendor indicate if the vendor has ever had a contract terminated for non-performance or poor performance in the past 5 years. We'd like to know the incident and how the incident has been addressed. Conflicts of interest, please review that section. Terms and conditions are laid out here. There's a host of documents. I think this came up during OPD's presentation. Finishing on this last section, so the proposals, Part 4, proposed specific guidelines. You're here today for the conference. This conference will be posted on web. As stated, there was no diversity requirement. Subcontracting is permitted. Financial statements must be made available. And the format is, there is no performance bond, and the proposal format is listed here. Not going to go over the general proposal procedures. I think that was described by OPD. I think I would just conclude by directing you to the budget that has been provided as attachment 1. Listed in that budget is both the overall budget, a budget summary, and the expectation that there will be a budget narrative that will outline the proposed costs. We are expecting that a budget description will be provided for each budget category that supports the costs that you are proposing in your budget. At this time, that's all that I would share. I'd ask, are there any questions that have been submitted for us to look at?
We'll be having an addendum to provide you the web link for this pre-proposal conference and the any questions and answers that we have. And those questions and answers may, be uploaded.
So there's a question about an electronic copy of the budget. That's something we can send out. So that is with the addendum. So that if somebody wants a Word or an Excel version, we'll provide it in one format that's usable. There are a number of questions here about the roles of the provider, and we think that we will need to clarify that, and we'll do so in the addendum. So there's a question about, is the intention to be 100% performance we list in the RFP that in the past, we've been 30 to 40% of our contract is based on performance. At this time, we're not proposing to be 100% performance. So there's a question about if we can clarify the expectation that there will be minimal transfer of a client among case managers with a model where subcontractors and other social servants agencies will be provide services. Again, one of the goals of this is for each referral from JFS will be to one provider. If it's to that provider to determine if they need subcontractors. There are a number of questions about the number of clients that will be served and expectations for how many clients will be available. We've laid out much of that in here. We've also said, the services are declining as we've seen recently, or the population to be served is declining. So I'm not sure we'll be able to provide anything more than is listed here. So there's a question about if a provider can apply as a subcontractor on a prime provider's bid, as well as a subcontractor seeking to be matched. The answer is yes. We will address the provider roles in an addendum. So there's a question about 15 pages of attachments. So I think what maybe the confusion is that there are 15 attachments or 15 pages. And so each proposal can include up to 15 pages of attachments. Per service. Yeah. Again, there are quite a few questions about the anticipated population size. Two things I'll say on that. One, we've listed what we currently project in the RFP. We've also recognized that we want to be open and prepared to respond if the state does in fact implement what Medicaid work requirements. That will significantly increase the population to be served. Funding for that is not clear, so we don't know how we will serve them at this time. There's also a question about individuals with barriers to employment, a reference to a term that we used in the proposal, intensive case management. Any provider that is looking at a subpopulation or a cross-population group, if you feel like there's a group that you have experience in serving, that's something that should be reflected in your proposal. It's to the providers to detail the service they want to provide and how that matches the needs of the individual. Not sure if let me see if there are any other questions that we can answer at this time. There are some questions that we want to look at in more detail, and if we feel we have to answer them, we'll do so in the addendum. We already answered this one. So at this time, unless there are any other questions, I'm going to turn it back to OPD to see if they have any other clarifications. There was one other question.
So if you have additional questions after this, and once we submit the addendum to all plan holders with the web link and the questions that have you would be able to still contact David through email as it's listed on page 5 of the RFP. So it's not going to preclude you from asking any additional questions, particularly since questions. So again, on page 5, we were talking about confidential financial statements. Only submit that with your original. You don't need to make 6 copies of that. Nobody wants to go through 6 copies of financials. But please submit that with a confidential envelope with your original. Again, on October 19th by 11 a.m., please make sure you have your proposals in its entirety sealed, submitted downstairs on the 2nd floor, and it must be time-stamped by 11 a.m. Do not send it to David's address. Do not send it to the J. Hunter Building, anyone else in Berger Brown. Please make sure it's submitted here and that information is in there. Wouldn't believe the things. Again, with UPS and FedEx, if they come to deliver at 8 a.m., they can't get into the building. They sometimes don't come out back until afternoon, and we can't submit your, accept your proposal then either. I suggest the driver and the runner, if you're local, have someone rushing in, going through security, going upstairs or these funky elevators, and please again, line because there are other proposals.
That concludes our presentation today. As we said, this presentation has been recorded. It will be posted. The information that you submitted in your cards, we will look at. Where possible, we will group and answer the questions, and that will be shared amongst all providers. So thank you very much and have a great day.